Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. Today we're starting another reading vlog. It's going to be an ARC vlog again. I've decided to try and keep this as a rolling vlog that I'll do when I have an ARC for a month, just to keep myself on top of reading those books so that they're not languishing in my NetGalley, bringing my ratio down. So this month, as last month, I have an ARC that's coming out, just one this time, and I'm really excited because it's the new T. Kingfisher. I'm going to be reading Wolfworm in this video, and I'm thrilled. I've been really looking forward to this one. It's a historical horror set in North Carolina at a reclusive estate, not reclusive, a secluded estate, where there's, I think he's like an entomologist doing research, and we're following a young woman who is a scientific illustrator who gets a job working for him doing scientific illustrations, and it seems like maybe his experiments have gotten a little out of hand. I think this sounds incredible. I'm so excited. I also just recently read a different T. Kingfisher, so I am, kind of ready to dive back into more of her writing, and I'm curious to see what she's going to do with a historical horror, because I think most of the ones I've read from her, aside from the Sworn Soldier series, have been kind of contemporary horror, so I'm really excited to dive into this one and see what it's like. I'm also about to go visit my mom for a few days, so I'm filming two vlogs kind of simultaneously so that I can take Wolfworm and the book I have for that vlog, which is my Shelf Control episode 3, and take both of those with me as a reading material for the next few days. So yeah, I'm gonna go dive into Wolfworm probably after I get to my mom's house, and I think I'll try to check in a couple of times. This one should be a little bit on the shorter side just since I only have one ARC for the month, but it's one of my most anticipated, so I think it should still be a really good time. I'm a little more than halfway through Wolfworm now. It's been a couple of days. I intended to start it while I was at my mom's house, and technically I did start the book while I was over there, but I started it shortly before we came back, so a little bit later than I was anticipating. That said, I'm really enjoying Wolfworm. The premise is we're following this young woman named Sonia Wilson. I say young, she's like 30-ish, and it's set in the 1890s, so she's basically like a spinster at this point. But she is a scientific illustrator, and her specialty is botany because her father was a botanist. And now she is going to do this role where she is doing scientific illustrations of insects for an entomologist. So it's not in her specialty. There's some things that she doesn't really understand about the job at times, but she goes to work for this guy named Dr. Halder, who lives in like a kind of secluded estate in Chatham County in North Carolina. And he is kind of abrasive, but he's like a genius entomologist and has hired her to help him with a book project. Of course, upon arriving at his estate, things start to go a little bit sinister, even as she's like getting to know the other people that live there and work there, and starting to like form these relationships and kind of settle into the job. Things start to get a little bit creepy, a little sinister, and she finds herself sort of chasing answers for all of these odd questions that arise about like what's in the woods, what happened to the previous illustrator, because it's clear from very early on that she was not the first person to work on this project, and so she is kind of hunting out that information while also trying to make sure that she's hitting her deadlines for the illustrations. And I'm just really enjoying it. I really like Sonia. She is very practical, but also very anxious. There's a big aspect of the book is her like anxiety and the way that it influences the way she like approaches things, because she's very anxious about like doing something that might cost her job. So she has to really be thinking about how she approaches a question, or she'll find herself like being really anxious about taking a specific action because it would get her information, but might also put her in a position where she could be fired. So that's a really big piece of the book. And she's also very like artistically minded because she's an illustrator. So a lot of the description of the book is like, how would she approach painting various things that she encounters, like people or landscapes or objects. She's always like, if I was going to paint this, I would do these colors and I'd use this technique, and it's like her specific way of looking at the world bleeding into the descriptions of the story. So I'm really enjoying that. And as with all T. Kingfisher books, we have lots of like quirky characters, but they're all pretty well rounded. They feel like real people with their own little particular quirks and flaws. So I'm really enjoying the cast we have at the manor. It's like Mrs. Kent, who's the housekeeper, and her husband, who's the gardener. There's a young girl that works there. There's also a couple of other people from the local town. And so there's just like lots of fun, unique personalities that Sonia is interacting with. Dr. Halder is also interesting because he is like very abrasive. He's very self-interested, and so she's like figuring out how to navigate his personality to get information without making him angry. So I'm really enjoying the way that that like dynamic is shifting over the course of the story. And yeah, it's really good so far. It's everything I want from a T. Kingfisher horror book. And it's starting to get really, really creepy. I've gotten to some really scary scenes already, and I'm at like 55%, so I'm curious to see what's left to happen, because we're already getting into some like very creepy body horror aspects of the story. We have to have a quick dog break so you can see Maisie enjoying her evening greenie. This is her newest bedtime ritual. She gets her greenie before bed. We try to give it to her earlier, but she just won't eat it until right before bed. She'll like eat her greenie and then go into her crate. Now that we've had our dog moment, I can tell you that I finished Wolfworm, and I actually finished it at exactly the same moment. Like, read the whole book, read the author's note at the end, finished the last line at the exact same time that the timer I had running went off to let me know that the banana bread that I had cooling on the counter was probably cool enough to cut. So that was perfect timing, although I will say this is probably one of the worst books to be reading while you're eating or like right before you're going to eat, because the particular body horror in this one was nauseating to me. There's a lot of things I can stomach, but the like bug insect body horror here really turned my stomach. It really made me nauseous a few times. Like, it's really, really well done. It's just really nauseating as well. So ultimately, I really enjoyed Wolfworm. I liked the second half of it a lot. I like the way that our protagonist, Sonia, is really like active in searching out clues to answer the questions that she has. And a lot of her questions end up kind of like dovetailing. They become related in a way that she wasn't expecting. So I really enjoyed that part of it. Again, I really liked the horror aspect of it. I really like all of our characters all the way through. I think we have a really interesting cast of people. They're very, like, typical of T. Kingfisher books. They're very, like, quirky, but they're all pretty well-rounded. You always have this sense that, like, some of them are keeping secrets, and it's interesting seeing the protagonist, in this case Sonia, like, navigate how to tease out those secrets. And I really liked Sonia as a protagonist. She's very anxious. But having just read another T. Kingfisher where we have a character who's kind of blunt and not socially inept, but just not like used to being political. In this case, we have Sonia, who's like very anxious. She's a little bit socially awkward, or not even really socially awkward. She's just a little bit awkward, but she's also a lot better at sensing other people's moods and at figuring out like how much to ask and how much to push. So I thought that was really interesting, and it was fun seeing those as like a contrast to each other. So I really enjoyed basically the entire book. Really the only thing that brought my rating down at all, I'm giving it a 4.5. I'm not quite a 5. The only things that brought down my rating at all were, one was a few sort of egregious uses of repetition. T. Kingfisher regularly uses repetition as a way of like reinforcing ideas, or especially in a lot of her books for reinforcing something about the like mental state of the protagonist. In this case, there were a few instances of repetition I found kind of grating. If I had to read about how the character didn't know what a metathorax was one more time, I thought I was going to lose it. But other than that, like, I generally feel like it's a useful tool in the right hands, and T. Kingfisher does it really well a lot of the time. There were just a few instances of repetition in this particular book that I found a little bit annoying. I reached a point where I was like, yes, I get it. Can we have a resolution to that, or can we kind of move on from it? But it was just like a couple of small pieces. And then the other thing was that there was a pretty major reveal near the end of the book at like the 80 to 85% mark that I feel like isn't given quite as much room to breathe as it needs. It could use a little bit more development. It's a pretty major revelation about the world, and it feels like it's tossed in there kind of almost offhandedly, and then it becomes like a fact of the world for the character pretty quickly. And I feel like it was an idea that could have been dug into a little bit more. I would have liked a little more information on it. And I can't tell you what it is, so I realize that this is being very vague. I can't tell you what it is without majorly spoiling this book. And I really think if this premise sounds at all interesting to you, you should check this one out. It's really, really good. I was a little bit worried I'd be squeamish going in with the bug horror, and as I said, it was really stomach churning at moments, but I feel like T. Kingfisher just is so good at taking an odd, interesting idea and building it up into a compelling story, and I feel like that's exactly what she's done with the insect horror in this. So yeah, absolutely love it. Really excited that that's going to be out in the world later this year. Not later this year, later this month. Can you tell it's late in the evening and my brain is a little bit mushy? Super excited it's going to be out and more people can read it, because I love T. Kingfisher's work, and this was yet another banger. So that's pretty much all I have for you. I absolutely loved it. I think you should read it. But I really hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, hope you consider giving it a like, maybe even subscribing to see what comes next. I'm currently posting at least once a week, and I hope to see you in the next video.